Hello, welcome back. Now in this video we are going to see how to navigate around the scene and also how to place the 3D objects. So now in order to orbit around the scene here we need to click on middle mouse button and drag. So if you want to orbit around, just we need to click on middle mouse button and drag so that we can orbit around this scene here. Now in order to zoom in, zoom out, what we need to do is we need to click on control and middle mouse button drag up and down so that we can able to zoom in, zoom out. So if you drag up direction, it will zoom in. If you drag down direction, it will zoom out. So there is another way to zoom in, zoom out. So if you use a middle mouse wheel, like if you scroll down, then it will zoom out, and if you scroll up, it will zoom in. So either you can use control middle mouse button, click and drag, or else we can use middle mouse wheel. So in order to pan around the scene, we need to hold shift middle mouse button, drag up and down, left and right to pan the camera. And one thing, suppose if you want to directly focus any selected object, so for example, suppose if I select this light here, and if you want to focus this object, you can press full stop in the numpad so that it will directly focus the object. So for example, suppose if I select this cube, and if you press full stop, then directly it will focus the object. So same like camera, so like so whatever the object you want to focus, then we need to click on that object and we need to press full stop in the numpad. And also one thing, in order to select the multiple objects, you can left click and drag so that you can select the multiple objects here. Suppose in case if you want to select this light and camera, then you can left click and drag. And also whenever you focus any particular object, suppose for example, if you focus this object and press full stop, and now if you orbit, so the camera will orbit around the object here. And for example, if you select this camera and if you press full stop, and now if you orbit, now it will orbit around the camera. So what the thing is, whatever the object is been selected, and if you have focused onto that object, and you can orbit around that object here. So in case if you select the two objects and if you focus, then suppose for example, if you select this box and light and if you press full stop, then it will focus the two objects. And now we will see how to add the new objects to the scene here. So for example, let's say first we will delete all these objects, and just in order to delete, you can press delete, or else you can press X and directly you can select the delete option. So there are both ways to delete the objects in the scene. So now in order to create an objects in the scene, we need to press Shift and A. So we have to hold Shift A so that you can see it has been it has been opened the add menu option here. So from this we can add different varieties of 3D objects like lights, cameras. You can see here there are a lot of lists in the add menu. So for timing, I will go to mesh and we can add any 3D objects here. So for example, if I click on this cylinder, so whenever I click on the cylinder, now see it has been added and cylinder, and side here you can see it has been opened some of the properties which is related to the cylinder. So defaultly for you it will open in this way here. So what we need to do is we need to maximize this option, and here what we can do is if you want to add mesh to this object, we can use this vertices. Like suppose if you want to add the vertices, just you can left click and drag so that see now it has been, now it is increasing the vertices. And also here we can increase the radius, depth, and also we can change the location and rotation. And the location and rotation, we will not use any options in this property here. So we will use the location, we will change the locations and rotations of this object by using the another tools, which I will explain in the later videos. So here if you want to change any properties of this object, here you can change, and just what we need to do is we need to click on this the empty area so that it will create this object. So now it has been created an object here. So for example, we will create another object. Let's say we can delete, and if you press shift A, here you can say go to the mesh and you can use this like cylinder, like torus. So if you click on this, and here you will have an options. So from here you can increase and decrease the segments. So object will become very smooth when you increase the segments here. And here we can use the radius, we can increase and decrease the radius of this torus here. And next if you press shift A again, and you can here you can use the plane. So if you click on this plane, it will create the plane here, and from here you can increase the size of this plane. So plane usually used for the ground and also for walls, any mirror kind of things. And let's delete this. And as I said, we can create a lot more objects. For example, if I press shift A, not only 3D objects, we can create the lights, cameras also. So suppose if you go to the light menu, and if you click on this point light, now see it has been created the point light here. And suppose if you press shift again, and if you go to like spotlight, so it has been created the spotlight. And also we can create the cameras too. So if you click on this camera, now it has been created the camera. So which we'll use it laterly to make some any animations. So during that time we can use a camera. And also suppose if you want to set any angle to the object, and if you want to render laterally, then we can set the angle by using this camera and we can render. So let's delete this. And if you see here, you can add some of the force field also. What are force field is, suppose if you're creating any dynamic animations, like if you're creating any cloth or etc. So that for that we will use this force field. So this will be covered in the later on courses. And also if you want to create the text, we can create the text too. So if you see here, and you can click on this text and you can change the radius, and laterally we can add any kind of text to this. And also here you can see in the center there is a circle which we'll call it as an 3D cursor. So what the thing is, whatever the object you create, so that object will be created at that positions. And also there are some uses with the 3D cursors which I will explain in the further class. So for example, see now the 3D cursor is here. So whenever we create the object, so if you click on this cube, so that cube has been created at exactly to the center of this cursor here. For example, suppose if you change the positions of this 3D cursor and if you place here, then whenever we create the object, that object will be created in the positions of the 3D cursor. So that's it for this video. So in the next video, we are going to see how to change the positions of the objects, like we can move, how to move around the scene, how to scale, rotate. So see you in the next video.